Fellas, say goodbye to Chuck Sherman the boy. I am now a man. I highly recommend you join the club. We are doing the wild thing all night.
Acid house music.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Sherm.
Sherman, I cook all this food. Is that all you gonna eat?
General Sherman realized and understood the importance of house music.
So, do you know anything about techno?
No.
Listen.
Get it on.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another brand new episode of Sherm in the Booth. I'm, of course, your host, Sherm. Today is Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. This is episode 137. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving or however you celebrate wherever you're listening in the world. I'm so excited to be rounding out this year with some incredible interviews. But first up, we've got my man, Nick Hayes. Now, Nick is currently based in Atlanta, Georgia, working in the film industry, but he spends any and all excess time pumping out incredible tracks, and it was such a pleasure to get his full story for this interview. In episode 137, we discussed Nick's early inspirations and experiences. We talked about the Midwest electronic scene a lot. He's from Michigan, and he was hooked after her first few live shows. And it's so funny because I had a similar experience as well when I was in college. One of the first electronic shows I ever saw was Avicii, and his was Steve Aoki. You could call us cookie cutter, but those days really do make an impact on you. Now, one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to Nick was, of course, to discuss music. He's an incredibly talented progressive house producer, and he continues to get better and better with each track. We ran through all of his releases and talked about where he was at creatively when he was making these tracks, and I'm a huge fan of all of them. Now, I'm not the only one who thinks he's a great producer. Kristin Nairn, aka Hodor from Game of Thrones, who, if you didn't know, is a touring DJ and is actually pretty incredible, and of course, above and beyond, one of the biggest groups of all time in the electronic music world. They have both supported his music and so many other producers, and it's just incredible. I want to acknowledge you again for that, man. Now, as we all know, 2020 has been a tough year for everybody, especially the music industry. So I wanted to ask Nick how he's been able to stay motivated and creative, and he said he's used this year to his advantage. Working in the movie industry can have long days, and it can be pretty tough to balance anything else outside of that. So obviously, with so much stuff on hold right now, he's been able to get into the studio, and I'm telling you, he's setting himself up for a big 2021. I can't wait to hear all this music coming. It was such a pleasure to have Nick on Sherm in the Booth. Like I said, guys, I'm a really big fan of his style of music. I have a soft spot for progressive house, and all of his songs really hit the feels for me. So I wanted to have him on, like I said, get his full story, and it was such a blast. Without further ado, guys, let's do it right now. This is episode 137 with Nick Hayes. All right, Nick Hayes. Welcome to Sherm in the Booth, my man. How are you? Coming in live from ATL, Atlanta, Georgia. This man told me before we went on air, he experienced a sunburn and also a frostbite in the same day. Is that how the weather is out there right now?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, part of it's, just to make fun of the people that are stuck in the cold right now. But, yeah, it is what it is. Being from Michigan myself, you kind of experience both sides of it, just not like in the same day, like you guys get Chicago gets like snow and then the next day it's hot out. So, yeah, I guess just like to poke fun of people that are still kind of stuck in the cold.
Well, I have a lot of friends that are from Atlanta, and my day job is actually in transportation and logistics. And I know whenever it rains in Atlanta, it might as well be like 10 inches of snow. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, people I don't know how, I haven't been in Chicago long enough to be like the drivers are bad, but I think I can speak for Michigan drivers. Like, they all speed, but they can drive in the snow and whatever. But in Atlanta, they talk about snow, the whole city shuts down. Like, it rains, people can't drive, and honestly, if it's sunny, people can't drive. So it's like the Southern hospitality thing is real until you get in a car and then everybody's like cutting each other off and whatever. So it's it's an interesting place. The insurance rates are high for a reason, I think. But
well, that's awesome, man. Coming from you said Detroit, right?
Yeah, just outside of Detroit. Probably like 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Detroit to Michigan State to Atlanta. Now tell us, before we get into music and everything in your story, you're in the movie business, man. How long you been doing that for?
Yeah, so movies since pretty much I wanted to do it, I guess. I mean, as long as I can remember. I've kind of bounced around a little bit recently in what I do, but yeah, I've always kind of had the vision to kind of do movies and just stuck with it. Went to school for it. I think, you know, when I was little, we moved out to California for a few years, so maybe that was like what was like, oh, movies. You know, it's all at the time. A lot of it was there, but also when we moved back to Michigan, there were film incentives in Michigan, so went to film school there. And then right when I graduated, that was the year the incentives went away, and so most of the jobs went away. And I got a call from the people I got lucky. I worked on a movie in college with my professor at the time, and the guy who produced that, it was like a small independent thing. And the guy was probably like our age now, and he was like producing it, but he ended up working in the production office of Transformers, like the fifth one. And so when we finished that movie, he was like, hey, you know, like, I know you're still in school, but like, what do you say, like, you know, the summer between junior and senior year, you come work for 3 months on Transformers when they're shooting in Detroit. So I got my start in the production office there, and had a nice little like, oh, this is what movies is like. And then I had to go back to film school where everybody thinks they're a director and not working on a $300 million movie. And then, yeah, you know, at the end of that, that crew was like, hey, we're going to go do Avengers, like, come with us. But my parents were like, finish school. So I was like, all right, finish school. And then I got a call for Venom, which was like with Tom Hardy and
love that
a couple of those people. But yeah, moved down here for that. I don't think Georgia was ever like a place I was like, oh, like, I don't think I'll ever end up in Georgia. I never really like considered it, but that's where the work was. And yeah, I mean, the rest is kind of history. I've been doing that for probably 3.5 years since I graduated or something like that. I don't know how long it's been, whatever 2017 is. So
amazing, dude. What's your exact role? Are you kind of a jack of all trades, or do you do things?
Right now? Well, yeah. So right now I work in visual effects. That's like a new kind of the newer thing I've been doing. But before that, I was kind of going this like route to become an assistant director. So you work as like a production assistant. You got to get like 600 days to get in the union, and then be like a second AD or whatever. And that could probably be a whole nother conversation in of itself. But yeah, you know, I've got to work on some cool movies, and yeah, I mean, it takes up a lot of time, but yeah, I've had some cool like moments. Like, you know, I got to meet like Clint Eastwood and like work with The Rock on some things, and you know, see a lot of explosions, get yelled at by Michael Bay, like a lot of like things that like most people don't get to do on a normal day. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, I know you said you liked Venom, but if you like look at like the 3 minute mark or somewhere in there in the movie, I have like a little cameo as like a dead astronaut. It was just like a joke, but they ended up putting it in the movie, so I saw my face in IMAX. But yeah, so
that's
it's like
fucking awesome, dude.
I'll have to send you the link after or something. It's pretty like, it's like some like Russian movie theater where they have like the you know, someone's just like recording it in theater on their iPhone, but like that's what I show my family, and they were like proud of me. So
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just fun.
Oh, man.
Fun little
That's
tip.
really cool. I actually I went to Indiana for the media school and focused on design and production. I didn't get that deep, although I did have some aspirations to go into the radio and broadcasting role, which I'm now doing, of course, as a side hustle. You know how it
Seems
goes.
to be working, yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be working. My parents are glad that at least I'm putting my degree to work in some way. Like your parents, they said, please finish school. My parents said, please finish school.
Yeah, they're like, we don't care what you do, but you gotta finish. So
yeah,
I guess I'm kind of glad I did. So
yeah, definitely. Well, very cool, man. And it's awesome because for those that don't know, Atlanta is such a huge hub for movies these days. And it's really just like, I mean, everybody's always thought it's Hollywood, it's LA, right? Which it is. But I guess real quick, when did it make the big transition over to Atlanta, and what were some of the main reasons?
So I mean, honestly, like, I think the film industry kind of just follows like money and the incentives. You can make, I mean, a lot of these movies now, they have enough money to make anywhere look like anything, you know.
Yeah, true.
And you know, I've been on movies where they fake snow or they fake water or they fake beaches, you know.
Yeah.
And I think really the main thing was in Atlanta was, I would say, probably the incentive program. And you know, without getting too much into it, I think they had a incentive program like a lot of the other states at the time. Like I think around like 2000. I don't know. I don't want to like give a date and then get called out on it. But yeah, I'd say probably like 2008 or like, you know, probably before like 2014. Like a lot of states were doing like, oh, we could do film, bring film here to film in these abandoned Detroit buildings, for example.
Right.
But like Atlanta just really stuck it out and kind of just like out incentivized every other state. And a lot of states were like, well, you know, I don't know looking back if they really dumped in a lot of money like to get the infrastructure there. But now you have these big studios. One of them being the studio called like Pinewood Studios. They are also based in Europe, and they have, I think it's like London or the UK, and they have that's where they like shoot like the Star Warses and like, you know, all the big movies that we watch here.
Right.
And they opened up a studio that's just out maybe like 50 minutes south of Atlanta, or you know, 30 minutes or something, and they shoot a lot of bigger movies there now, and they've since changed the name of the studio. But there's a lot of just like, there's so much happening here, where it's like I've bought warehouses and turned them into like sound stages, but it's like you drop a pin on one side of the building and you like hear it on the other side, and they're like, what was that sound? Like, we're trying to shoot. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, you're also half renting this space to a place that makes like air horns. Like, I can't help you, you know. But yeah, so that's, I think honestly, I think Atlanta's probably one of the number one places in the world to film.
Yeah.
It's the weather is, you know, nice. The California people are cold, but if you're from like the Midwest or anywhere that it gets, you know, below 50 degrees, you're like, all right, like it's not horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's just a lot of space to build, like in some of the places that they're building, and the land hasn't caught up to the value like California is. You know, if you're buying or renting, I mean, they're starting to, and rents are kind of astronomically overpriced in some areas. And as soon as they're like, hey, the Hollywood people are coming to town, they're like, cool, we'll put in the Whole Foods and the, you know, whatever, and the price of living is going to go up 5,000%. But
the Whole Foods comes in.
As soon as the Whole Foods comes in, your town's done. No, I don't know. There's an Aldi down the street. I've never been, but I was telling my roommate tonight, I was like, we got to try Aldi sometime. Like, just see what it's like. And people say it's great. I don't know, but
great fresh produce, I promise you.
I'm a Kroger guy, but yeah, myself. I'm not bougie enough, but yeah, who knows?
That's very cool, man. I'm envious in a few ways that you're living in a city like Atlanta, which is obviously growing so much. There's so much diversity there, and just the arts and culture and music scene there is awesome. But you're coming from Detroit, Michigan, man, which is like the birthplace of techno, you know, home of Movement Festival, like one of the main hubs in the Midwest. Chicago's, you know, brother. Like, it's a great city. I have a lot of friends from there. I've been there many times. What was your exposure like to electronic music growing up there? Did your parents love it? What was that like for you?
So I wouldn't say it was much my parents. They were teaching me how to play like piano and stuff. Bless their hearts. I think that helped in the long term becoming a producer and in music theory. So I'll always have like a soft spot for, you know, orchestral stuff and movie soundtracks, you know, the Bachs, the Beethovens of the world. I could never read music or anything like that, but I think the person that actually got me into dance music, like I used to not listen to like radio music. I was like that like weird hipster guy that was like, I gotta find it before it's on the radio or whatever. But my one buddy, his name was Matt Smilt, and he we called him Smilt because his last name. But he drove me to school every day, and he'd always have, it was like when like the aux cord, you know, was like invented, so like that was like the cool thing, you know. And
generation.
Right. Some people are like, bro, like what? But I guess that was like tapes and CDs. But he basically would play like, some music, and he showed me this one song, and like this was back when like Shazam wasn't around, where it was like anything with like a piano, people would be like Avicii, and it was like, I don't know. The song actually was like an Impeto track that I heard first, and then another one called like, oh man, I don't even remember, Cherry Coke by like Milky Way or something like that, or something like that.
Throwback, yeah, holy shit.
And I made him listen to that song like every day, because I was like, bro, this song is awesome, and he was like, I think by the end of it, he was like, okay, I can't do this for like, because we would get to school early and like just like jam out in the parking lot, and like, it's just like high school, that's the thing to do, you have your car, listen to music loud or whatever, and we would like sit in the parking lot listening to that song on repeat, and eventually he was like, okay, finally we have to change this. He found this song called Levels by Avicii, and then that was kind of that was like my like song that everybody was like, all right, like you play that, like Nick's gonna pop up. Like it was so bad to the point that even when I was like mascotting, I would like, go over to the DJ and like, push him aside, like use the CDJs or whatever, and kind of like put Levels on, and the people like that, knew me would be like, okay, like some people would be like, whoa, like that mascot, he's playing like Levels, that's really cool. And a lot of people were like, Nick. Like, so I mean, maybe I gave it away because it was like a secret when you were doing it there at the time, but I think I just kind of used the suit to just do what I ever wanted to do, and like but yeah, so I guess that's how I got into it, into listening to music, and we would listen to that, and eventually he was like saying he showed me like FL and kind of got into the producing side of things and whatnot. But
wow, so your buddy not only showed you electronic music, or you kind of discovered this new layer or genre entirely together, but you also producing together. Did you guys DJ before, or did you start producing before you DJ?
So I guess he had like a cracked version of like FL or something like that, and we would like mess around on that. I think he downloaded like a project file from like a Dead Mouse track, and he was like, yo, I made this, and I was like, bro, what, you like made the belt? Like, that's so sick. Like, how did you do this? And like we would like sit there and try to take it apart, and like I just remember, we didn't have like any like monitors or anything, and we would just kind of like drive around town and like, okay, like Target parking lot tonight, and we would like try to like work on our song in the car with the song plugged into the aux cord, and probably why I have hearing damage now, but that was pretty much like my introduction to producing. But I wouldn't have started producing until I would say more seriously until years later down the road. But the DJing thing kind of like started catching on maybe June, like in I would say I was on the swim team, and so like we always had like the locker room playlist. So I kind of like started with that, and then I'd like put together things that I were like, yo, I made this mix, and like they were total trash. Like I think I had like Sony Vegas Pro at the time, and I was like just like fading the songs into each other. But like basically when I started DJing, I didn't have the cool aux cord like all the other kids did. Mm-hmm. I had this like thing. I had like a tape. It was like a tape cassette, and you put it in, and it like blocked out like one of the random like radio frequencies, so you could like find a radio station that wasn't being used, and you could like be on the radio or whatever. And but the problem was my cigarette lighter in the front seat of the car was not working, and that's how it got power, and then the one in the middle of the console wasn't working. So if I wanted to have anything on like my iPod Nano or whatever, I had to like plug the cigarette lighter radio jammer thing into the back trunk of my car, and like you obviously can't pull over every time you want to like change the song. So I would like make these little mixes if I knew I was going on like a 30-minute drive, like boom, 30-minute mix, and like they weren't like the best thing, but it like really is like everybody just wanted to hear the songs that like I produced or whatever at the time. But like obviously it was not like, my definition of producing is a lot different now than putting a couple songs together. But I guess those little 30-minute mixes were how I drove around and listened to things before that.
Sounds like though, to a certain extent, like, and being from the Midwest, right? Like I'm from a town outside Indianapolis, man. And I had one friend that showed me a Steve Aoki song, Bloody Beetroots and Steve Aoki Warped 1.9, when I was like, I think it was one of the first times I was ever drunk. And I was like, what is this, right? And then I started listening to Deadmau5, but I didn't have a lot of people that surrounded me that were like, this is what we want to listen to, this is what we want to do. And it sounds like to me you have a similar story as I did in regards to you kind of like found this and you kept going, whether you're by yourself or with your one or two buddies, right? It's always been this undiscovered passion for you, right?
Yeah, so I guess like the swim team, we had all like the weird like European songs, like I don't want to say like we had like obviously we had like whatever, like the I'm Blue, like Eiffel
65, yeah.
65, yeah, or some like those weird like there was this one song called like Resuscitate Me, like that everybody would like sing in the locker room, but like I don't even know where we found some of these songs, but like I remember one of them was the Alesso. I think it was like Alesso remix of
Fashion Ingrosso and Calling.
Yep. That was a big one in the locker room, and Lose My Mind was another one. So yeah, I don't know. Whenever those come on, it's kind of like I remember those. But yeah, I mean, they even weren't really into it. I don't think point I was, and I honestly had never even been to a concert or anything until college. I think it's funny how you said Steve Aoki was the first like person you listened to, because I think the first concert I went to was put on the first and last EDM concert MSU ever did was Steve Aoki, Gareth Emery, and
Wow.
Rehab, which is like a very strange lineup looking at it now, but I guess times were different, and they actually like moved into like the Life in Color scene, which I think you probably had plenty of those in the Midwest, because why not do Life in Color in October when it's freezing cold and you dump paint on everybody and then kick them out when the thing's over on the street. So I definitely had my fair share of those as well. So I think that was, I guess. Yeah.
Your roots are obviously in progressive from what you were just saying, and obviously the music you released today is progressive. Before we kind of jump into your discography, how did your influences grow and evolve from what you're talking about here, kind of this European music for the most part, right? I mean, you haven't said other, and at least from what you preferred, not a lot of American producers. Where were you kind of like growing at this point when you started getting deeper and deeper, right? Because you know how it goes. You start with Steve Aoki, and then you go to Alesso, and then you go to Axwell, and then you go to the Swedish guys, and then you go to another layer. Next thing you know, you're listening to dark techno.
Yeah, I'm at Bergen, right? No, so I think like that's like one of the cool things that will always be like, this is what I like about dance music. It's like it is like this like onion that like has all these different layers, like musically. It's like, before me and my roommate were roommates and hanging out all the time, and buddies in college, like he didn't know what dance music was. He loves Dave Matthews Band. I'm like, I don't know what Dave Matthews Band is. Like, I couldn't tell you. My neighbor is actually named Dave Matthews, but he's not in the Dave Matthews Band. But that's just like a fun fact.
Love it.
He like, I mean, I think it's cool seeing how like some of the songs I listen to, it's like, okay, well, you don't like that, let's go to like the chill tracks, and like we'll start vetting things out. And I think that's kind of how that happened with me. I was like, I'm not gonna lie, like I loved like the big room, like like in your face,
With that for me
who
too.
didn't, because that was like my first like concert, and like it was weird because like everyone was there to be like, oh, I want to get drunk. Like I remember everybody like put on glasses because we thought that's what you do, because you're like, oh yeah, we wear glasses because the lasers are gonna be so bright, and like yeah, whatever. Like looking back, it's like really cheesy, but yeah, I mean, I really liked Gareth Emery, and Rehab had a couple songs, like I think one of them was called Revolution.
Oh yeah.
He had one called like Samurai, and I just remember like messaging him and being like, hey man, can you please play your new track Revolution? And like, I think it's so stupid how like I even did that, but obviously he's gonna play it. It was like his new song at the time, and whatever. But yeah, I think like after, so going back to the question, sorry. You can like cut me off if I go too long. Like basically that festival like concert thing was like awesome in our minds, and like the university was like, great, never again. So then Life in Color came the next year, and I think it was Steve Aoki because people loved him, Laid Back Luke, and a couple other like local guys maybe. And I like went to that show and I was like, wow, that was cool. Like I hated getting sprayed with paint and then kicked out on the street and you're freezing. It's like the end of October and just everybody's pissed drunk, and I'm like that one weird sober kid that's there for the music and like whatever. But yeah, I was like, dude, it would be cool to play this concert. And I kind of like made it a goal to like, I was like, I want to play like a Life in Color. And everybody's like, all right, cool, like whatever, you know?
Right.
And I had like a couple buddies in high school that like would come up to school and we'd go to that. But the next year they had like a voting contest to like open for Life in Color. And I had no like real DJing experience or anything, but I was like, I'm going to win this contest. Like, I'm going to do this. Like Hardwell came to East Lansing too.
Nice.
And it was like a voting contest and I came in like second place.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, all right, bummer. Like that would have been cool. But I was like, I'm not gonna lose Life in Color. So I went like door to door in the dorms. Like I literally stood outside like the student stores. I'm like, hey, do you have 2 seconds to like vote for, for Jesus and also to vote for my like, mix or whatever? And like, most people like laughed at that, or I was like, yo, the other guy goes to U of M, and most people are like, oh, all right, I'll vote, like because they're drunk or whatever. And I got the most votes and I won. And then it was kind of at that point I was like, oh shit, like
I did it.
I don't know how to DJ. I had my like Tractor S2, and I don't know if the picture's still like on my Instagram or whatever, but like they like put the CDJs, like they had the CDJs set up, and I was like, yeah, I don't know how to use those. So I brought my own Tractor and we like put it on top of the CDJs, and I had my whole set planned, and I was like, all right, it's going to be great. I have all these deep house tracks to play. And then like they were letting me like test early before I don't even like remember who. It was like Milk and Cookies, who I think are from Chicago. Milk and Cooks now are from Chicago. And then a couple other, I don't even remember now. Wow. You'd think you'd remember that, but whatever. So I was the star. I was the opening star, but they opened the doors of the concert early. And they're like, hey, you're supposed to play 30 minutes. Can you play 55 now? And I was like, so I can't, so I threw some things together, hit the sync button a few times, and like people were like, they loved it. They thought it was great. And I was like, cool. But like, it didn't feel right to be like, these weren't my songs. Right. And I didn't go and play like all the bangers, because I like did my research, and I was like, okay, Laid Back Luke wouldn't want me to play this if I was opening for him, or like whatever. That was like my justification at the time. Where I was like, so what kind of songs do I play, right? And I was like, well, deep house, like that was like my opening tracks were like Oliver Heldens like Gecko at the time, and I thought that was like as deep as you can get, right? And then like but like now I know there's a lot different things, and I think just over time, I started to be like, well, this was cool DJing. And then that was like the only show. And then I did the same thing the next year and I actually wanted to open for like Riff Raff, Seven Lions. I remember that one. That was in Ann Arbor. But they ended up canceling the show the night before because like the venue like backed out for some other reasons. But anyways, I was like, well, I don't want to keep doing this. Like it just doesn't feel right playing other people's music. So I was like, I want to play music that I'm able to play like in an opening set. And so I just kind of took a step back from DJing, and not that I had like this long, extensive career by any means. I just show up with my gear and like, do whatever. But but that was kind of the point where I was like, okay, I can't play Animals, if I'm like opening, So like, what do I start getting into? And that kind of like forced me to start going into things. And then I took I guess I started listening to like deeper stuff, and my one friend was like, hey, you should listen to this guy called Grum. And I was like, all right, like I'll give it a shot. Like I'm the cheapest person in the world, and there happened to be a free concert. Grum was playing at the Grasshopper in Ferndale. I don't know if you've ever been there, but they bring some amazing acts there. And it was literally free. So I was like, free has 4 letters, so does my name. Like, let's go. I'll be first in. And it's like, had to get there at 9:30 or whatever. But I was like, yeah, dude. I stood there and like waited, for the music to start. Then they, the opener played and whatever. And but honestly, that was like really cool. Like, he had a couple like remixes at the time that I thought were really nice. And I kind of really fell in love with that like progressive trance kind of like in its hate. And I say heyday in my opinion, but that was like probably 2017. That was probably like right when it was like, for most of the progressive scene. So that was, I think, about even 2016. But I was like, this is really cool. And at Grasshopper, like you can get like right behind the DJ, people or whatever. So I was like right there behind him by the end of the night, just like watching the CDJs, like watching him. And I was like, wow, this is like something else. At one point he like turned around and I was like, oh crap, like I got too close, and he was like, hey, I think he thought I worked there, but he was like, can you like get me a water? And I was like, yeah, like I'll get you a water. I was so like, this guy's talking to me, like this is sick, right? And so like I go to the bar, like, because I'm a total like nightlife noob, right? And I go up to the bar and I'm like, hey, Grum wants a water, and they're like, yeah, okay, sure, I'm sure he does. Yeah, okay, next in line. So I go to the next bartender and they're like, can I get the DJ a water? I was like, okay, I'll change it up a little bit. And they're like, okay, yeah. They're like, here's a water, man. Just whatever. Like, you need another drink for real. Yeah. So I like took it to him, and he said thank you, and that I was like, all right, that's cool. Like, all right, I guess that's it. And like after the show though, it's like we talked a little bit, and he like stayed after and talked to me, and that was actually pretty cool. And I was like, I have some questions for you. Like, of course, I didn't have any questions planned. And so then he was like, yeah, like he said, you had some questions. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, how do you make your bass? I was like, what stupid, like, you're like, ah, like looking back now, like, I wish I had other questions, but
yeah.
Now, that was
a friend of yours though.
Yeah, we talk a lot more now than we did. Actually, ironically, well, he started playing my music like I guess a few years after that, right? And ironically, last winter I like met him. Like I've met him at other shows where I'm like, like like when they like go to talk to people and it's so embarrassing. But the thing I don't get is like I work with all these big time actors all day, and like it's like whatever, like so and so's having a bad day or so and so whatever. I talk to them all day, but like put me in the room with any DJ, like it could be someone that I'm like just the fact that they're a DJ and I'm like, whoa, like that's so cool, like or honestly more like the DJ producers. Like there's some people you put me in a room, I'm like, okay, this guy,
right,
or whatever. But I think people know who those people are, and whatever. But I was like so excited. I was gonna like introduce myself and be like, hey, I'm like Nick Hayes. Thanks for playing my tracks. Like now it could be like this, this, and this. Great. And he was like, well, I told like his like I wasn't his tour manager, but I told like the guy who was opening, and then he told the guy who like owned the club or was running the club that night at the Grasshopper. And they were like, dude, that's so sick. You got to meet him. And then I was like, hey, like, they cleared out the club after the show, and they were like, hey, like this guy is like, well, the bouncer like thought it was the coolest thing, is this big guy, and he's like, yo, Grum, you gotta meet this guy, like he's got a sick story for you. And I was like, well, really the story was just like, he played my music, I wanted to say thank you. But I was like, okay, like thanks, hype guy, like you can come on my next tour. But he was like super nice, and I mean, he was basically like the bouncer guy was like, yo, this is Nick. And I was like, hey, I'm Nick. It was so stupid, but then he was like, Nick Hayes. And I was like, yeah, like I already planned to like tell him who I was, but like he kind of like knew who I was. And I was like, thanks for my song, this and this. And he was like, oh yeah, like for sure, like good songs. And I was like, okay, like thanks, see you later. Like that was my plan. I had sent him like a remix at the time that I did, and I was like, can you play this tonight? You know, but like it was on Instagram and like whatever.
Right.
Obviously they don't check that often or whatever. And, but yeah, then he was just kind of like, you know, I'm starting up a label, like would love to have something from you. And I was like, you know, like it was like, I didn't
man, it's awesome.
It was weird that it was the club I met him at, you know, and years later having produced for a little while, but like, yeah, it was one of those very cool, like full circle moments that, yeah. And he's been, pretty good, and him and his manager have been pretty good and to me so far. And yeah, you know, we'll see what happens moving forward. And I think there's some stuff in the works there, but I know that was like your last point. So we yeah, you know, that was the last bullet point in the questions, but
that's very cool.
Looking to some stuff in that realm, I guess.
We're coming to that right now. That was a great story, by the way. That's so cool. It's always I feel the same way, man. I went on Holy Ship 3 years ago or something, and the coolest part about that is, you know, these DJs are just walking around. You know, they're not behind the booth, they're not inaccessible. They're there hanging out at the bar. And like the first year I went, I was like so nervous to go up and talk to any of these guys, right? Like I see like Green Velvet standing there, and he's like by himself at the bar, and I'm like, I can do this. Hi, Mr. Velvet. I'm Matt from Chicago. I love your
hi.
The next year, I'm like, yo, fuck it. It's like, it's Green Velvet, it's Solardo, it's Camel Fat, like, and it just is a whole different aspect to it. So I just wanted to relate to you on that. It's really funny how that happens, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty much just as bad at talking to girls as I am at DJs, but yeah, I don't know. You're always just like, oh, all right, like. It's weird, but like I will say, like the weirdest thing, like, well, a few weird things have happened since like some songs have come out, but like in Atlanta, like some people like knew who I was now, obviously, and like I wasn't getting shows before, so I was just kind of starting to do more shows in like the half year up leading up to the pandemic or whatever. And it was cool because like I'm not saying I like walk into the club and like everybody knows who I was, who I, you know, am, but I think at some point, like it was like people were coming up to me or like, you know, reaching out and being like, hey, like you're you know, your work is, and you inspire me. And I'm like, really? Like,
that's awesome.
Like I'm just inspired by like this guy, you know, but I think it's kind of cool to be able to, I mean, not that I've been the best about like giving back to everybody, but like, you know, if people like ask for feedback, I try to do that. Or like, you know, this one guy, like I met him at the club, and he like he was like, can we meet up at the club or whatever? And like so I was like, okay, sure, like it's a public place, like I'll be safe, you know. And when he met me, his conversation was like that same exact conversation that I had when I like met Grum for the first time. And it was just really weird because like the questions were, you know, it was like, how do you make your bass? But like, it was like, really, that's like all, like, we can just like talk like normal people, you know, like, because I'm literally just a normal guy. And like, I think it's been cool to realize that like the people that I've looked up to are just normal people. Like like Kristin Nairn or like Hodor, as a lot of people know him. Like he played one of my tracks called Metrolink for a while, and he came to Atlanta, and like we got to like hang out or whatever before his show, and he like let me like come up and backstage with him, and like, you know, we talked a little bit, and since then and everything. But
damn, bro,
yeah, like cool. Yeah, it was really a really cool thing. He's a very nice guy, and it was cool because he's in film and I'm in film, so I didn't have to be like, how do you make your basses? We were like, yo, film days are so long, and like this department's such a pain in the butt. Like it was a normal conversation, like more like we're having now, I think, versus where you like hold these people to like this like crazy stature when they're not that they don't deserve some of the respect that you give them, but like they're just people. And but yeah, like that was a pretty cool but yeah, I don't know.
Awesome. I'm glad I said that, because I wanted to see who supported your music, because you've had a lot of success, man. You started releasing music in 2018, but 2019, Coaster comes out, massive release on Elliptical Sun. which is an awesome label. I know all of your releases have been on that label, right?
Yeah, I'd say for the most part. There's a few before then, and I think there's a few going to be expanding out into hopefully the future that are on different labels. I know there's a few, but I don't want to say too much on those ones yet. But probably at least 2 or 3 different labels at the end. Oh, I don't know if you froze, but
Yeah, I can hear you. You're good. Keep going now. Nick, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
oh yeah, I can hear you now. Oh, there you're blinking again.
You're good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know if that part cut out, but yeah. So a few new labels that I think a few I'm really excited to be on that I've been working towards for a little while, and I can't really say much about those yet, but yeah, I've everything so far for the most part's been on Elliptical, and they've been pretty good for me. So
Awesome. That's very
yeah.
Is that Jeff Osmitz or who runs that label?
It's actually just a guy. His name's Alex, and he's he's pretty good. He's pretty cool. He's
Jeff,
got
what am I thinking of? What is
well, so Jeff, I think was an A&R over there for a little while.
Okay.
Adrian Alexander was an A&R.
Right.
They've since, I think they've moved on to other things. But yeah, I mean that label, a lot of pretty good people and a lot of like my good producing friends have come through there. And if anything, I just like Elliptical for the producer family that we've kind of like built over.
Yeah.
At least, obviously it's been there long before I was there, but yeah, there's probably like at least 5 or 6 of the guys I talk to on a daily basis, and then probably another like 10 or 15 I like troll every few days or whatever. But I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess you're on my Facebook, but yeah, I'm a little bit of a troll on other people's stuff. But yeah, so I basically get it back whenever I post like a profile picture or something. Everybody like post Photoshop photos of me and whatever, but. Part of the game, I guess. But yeah, those the producers I've met over there are really great people, and I think it's just important to surround yourself with the people that are doing, and like even like kind of how you were saying with like the funky guys or whatever, but like the guys that like, you know, give you that chance and the, you know, and go on to become your friends. And it's like when you're working with people that are working every day and striving to do things, it's, you know, most of the time I find myself like, wow, I'm not doing enough to be like these guys, you know, and
yep,
you know, hard having my schedule, but you know, they're always they're all at different levels. Like cool to help the people that are newer and like get help from the people that are more experienced, and I think that there's a fine balance of all of that with the people that I've met through there. So.
Absolutely, man. It's a great record label, and you've had some awesome releases. I mean, 2019 was a really big year for you. Coaster, Interchange, and of course, Metrolink. Let's talk about Metrolink, man. I mean, that track, I mean, it puts you on the map, bro. Like, how can we sugarcoat it? I mean, Above and Beyond dropped this in 2 other mixes. You said, who originally played that? Was it Adrian Alexander?
Yeah, so he played, so it was part of like the Elliptical Sun. They do like a compilation every year, and I had actually made Metrolink before Coaster, but I never thought it was like good enough to release, so I didn't really do anything. Yeah, I didn't end up doing with it, and it kind of just sat for a while, and I thought like Coaster was like the one that I was like, all right, like this is cool. And
Coaster's dope. It's really dope. Like I honestly like, I think Metrolink's sick. I personally prefer Coaster. We don't have to tell the rest of the world that, but continue, because that's really interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think basically like it's kind of like a weird story, but I had like signed Coaster or was going to sign it on this other label, and well, so I finished Metrolink first. I sent it to a few places. They didn't want it. So I sent it to this other label that they were like, okay, we'll take it right away. But originally it was this like, I don't know, it was like an 8-minute song. It was, the bulk of it was there, but there was like too much bulk,
Yeah.
And, so that obviously was no bueno, but it was sitting on this label to sign. They were like, hey, look, we want another song. Like, do you have anything else? And I had just finished Coaster, and I was like, oh, this song, very nice, as Borat would say. And he basically, they took that song as well, and they're like, okay, well, here's the deal. Like, the way this label works, this is kind of more of a trancey song, so it's got to be on our side label of this sub label. And we need 3 songs because we release 3 songs at a time or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. But like, I never finished that much at the time. And I still really like what I finished. I try to like really dial in versus just having a ton of stuff, and basically I was working on the 3rd song for them, and my laptop got stolen out of my car, and I lost that song that was like 85% of the way done. Pretty much everything from Coaster, and like Metrolink was still there, but I still had like the Coaster project file. And I was talking to my friend, his name's Rylan Taggart. He's on this label called This Never Happened, which is Lane 8's label now. But he was like, hey, look, I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. Like, I mean, I got all these songs, but now it's like stupid. Like, I don't know. But he actually was the one who was like, hey, you should send your stuff to Elliptical. He was like, I'm an A&R there at the time. He's like, I'd love to help you out. You're cool, whatever. And so I sent it. That did well. And then they were immediately like, hey, do you have anything else? Like after that did well, they're like, we need something by the like literally 2 weeks from now, because we're going to do our big compilation. And I was like, I don't have anything. But they're like, come on, you have something. And I was like, well, I have this like song like Metrolink. And I sent that over, and Adrian, he was like, I think, they helped A&R it, and we trimmed it down and, changed a few things. But they, at that point, I mean, I was, that track was working on that track for a while, and I was just like, dude, I don't know anything about it anymore. Just
take it.
If you think it's good, then whatever. Like, I mean, you guys know more than me. And he played it first for, on his guest mix, and then I think Above and Beyond played it 2 more times on Group Therapy after that, and then Kristin Nairn played it, and a lot of people ended up playing it, and it was cool to see that, like, that was kind of like where it was like, it doesn't necessarily matter the label, like the music went further than anything that I could have expected, and that song has definitely like opened the doors for me. I think, like you said, kind of like put me on the map a little bit. And I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, I still play it. There's a lot of things I would definitely have changed in it now looking back, but I know it definitely has like a heavy Grum influence to it, but
definitely does, doesn't it?
I mean, some people have like kind of like called me out, which is like, like you sound too similar or whatever. But like, I mean, definitely the beginning, I was like really excited. I found like the same like pad he used in Lightspeed, which is one of his tracks, and I was so stoked to put it in the song. It's like the intro is pretty much that, and a few people are like, a lot of people have like called me out on it and like how similar it is to other tracks. But like the way I like made the melody, the thing I do is I like put my piano on like a delay, and I just like hit the notes until something comes, and it happened to be very similar to another song that came out, which I end up referencing. Had I known that's maybe not necessarily the best way to go, it's a great way to produce, but I think, whatever.
I know what you mean.
But I think I'd say we're still on pretty good terms and everything, since they've been good to me anyway so far. So
that's Above and Beyond, man. I mean, they are the leaders in that progressive house. Like, they really they spread it pretty wide for being within a genre, in my opinion, and what they've done for the culture of electronic music, I believe is completely invaluable compared to so many other artists. How they do it, when they do it, the fact that they give so much opportunity to people like you is just so special. So I just want to acknowledge you for that, man. I mean, you should be really proud of yourself. Like, even though it was last year, dude, like, it's fucking above and beyond, man.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot obviously goes into it, and I had help from people on the outside that helped kind of craft it and get things perfectly, and
take the village. Take the village.
Yeah, I think that's just one of those things where it's interesting, where it's like, everybody kind of helps everybody. Like, I have people I help them write their stuff, and then they'll turn around and help me with a mix or like master like towards the end of the track or whatever. And I think that's so important, because I truly don't think I would be, regardless if that song came out or not, I don't think I would be where I was without some of like my friends that I've met over the years and worked with. And I think that's just so important, because you never know, obviously, like, who you help is going to be like the next big person, or who you burn is going to be the next person that comes after you and like destroys your career and whatever. Hopefully I haven't done that at least too much. So but yeah, I guess I just think that's the cool part of it. And then you kind of realize like that's what these professional people are doing as well. And then now to have some of them in your network and people that you've looked up to, I think is just like the coolest thing, and it's super motivating to me. It's also a little scary when some of these people are like asking for demos, and you're like, I don't know what, I don't have anything right now, or like I don't know what this person would like, but people are like, just do you, and I think that's important. Easier said than done. Like, trust me, like people tell me to just calm down all the time, because I'm like, what if it sounds like this? What if it's, whatever? And I think you just have to like enjoy the process. And, it's hard sometimes, like when you have a song that like does really good, and then your other songs kind of come out, and it's not that they do bad, but like I had a song that did what a lot of people would hope for happens by the end of their career. I had it happen kind of early on. And so I think that was kind of weird at first, where I was like, it doesn't have millions of plays or anything, but I think a lot of like, it resonated with a lot of people, which was cool.
Yeah, man.
But then you're like, oh, where do I go from here? What's like the next step, or what's the next song? But I think things will play out, and I guess we'll see what happens into the future, but nobody knows that part. So
that's true, man. And you've got a lot of different passions, and the most important thing is that like you're enjoying your process, and I'm definitely glad to hear you are. I mean, you've definitely kept this quality. I mean, all of your tracks, to me, like, one interesting thing about you and your production career is you have really high quality songs out, right? So you're building this incredible catalog on your own pace, and I think that's great, man, because so many people rush the process because they think they have to flood the market. You got to have quality and quantity. But like, the fact is, everybody's got their own journey. Everybody's got their own style. Everybody's got their own process. Stick to that. Find out what works for you, right? If you've got a day job like you do, right? Like, that is a true passion of yours. Do that. And music, what is music to you, I guess, actually, on that note? Like, since you are so passionate, you went to college for this. Like, is it a hobby? Is it what you would really want? Where is like the line for you?
For film, you mean, or for
first,
just
like,
in general?
If I said you could have the world's best job, or your dream job in film, or your dream job in music, what could you pick?
So I think even during quarantine a lot, I've kind of thought about this, because I've never had this much time to kind of like sit down and like work on things. I think at the beginning of quarantine, I was very like gung ho, and I finished most of the songs that will be coming out over the next couple months or whatever. And that's like the most songs I've ever finished in a year, which was cool.
Awesome.
But I don't usually have that amount of time, right? And I think by the end of quarantine, I was like, ugh, like, as much as I like love the streams and everything, and like at some point you're kind of like, well, dang, should I be making music or should I be making streams? And then you're kind of like, okay, I've been sitting here at the computer, like nothing's really coming out.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are like, what's the point of like making music right now, because I can't play it? But I think for me right now, it's the coolest thing to come out of quarantine is like the Twitch streams. Like, you know, it's one thing to see people play their music on radio shows, but as a producer, it's been cool to see like the people you look up to or like other producers that are pretty big, like play your stuff and like see like the live like feeds of it, you know, happening at the same time. And I think that's really cool. And I've had some cool opportunities like come from like demo drop session, you know, like random things that like never would have happened at quarantine. But I think a lot of those things I appreciate because it's not things that happen a lot. And, you know, I'm pretty hard on myself for when things do happen. And a lot of that wouldn't have happened without quarantine. So my only worry, if you're like in the ideal world, would you do music full time? I think like, honestly, I think I would end up being like too hard on myself. And I don't know, like I wouldn't want to do music full time, like freaking out of like, you know, what are people going to think of this? How is this going to put money on the table? Like, not that I'm like, I don't want to be a sellout or whatever. Like, I just kind of make the stuff that I like. And that's kind of just, you know, I try to make the stuff I like and it comes out as like a B plus or whatever version of that, you know. Right. But I think that's part of the journey. But I like, you know, is film the thing I love? Like, I enjoy it. The hours are crazy. So, you know, I don't know, like, you know, everything's got like a good thing and like a pro and a con to it. But I think to say that like I would, like, I love music, but like, I don't think I'd want it as like a day job. Like right now, it's just, I kind of want to take it at the pace it's been going. And cause you know, I would just hate to have that be something that I end up hating. You know, it's like I love film and like I do that full time. I do that like 15 hours a day. So it's like obviously you see the good and the bad after you do it like that. And I'm sure, you know, everybody's always like touring and you know, touring is hard on you, you know. But like, you know, obviously like I'm not to the point where I've like officially touring, right? Or like there were talks of doing some things, you know, after quarantine or like right before, you know. And, you know, I haven't done like a full like US tour, you know. And so like it's like a goal to like be able to tour some cities. But I can see how like when I talk about film, sometimes people are like, wow, that's like the coolest job ever, right? Right. But the reality of it sometimes is like you're away from your friends and your family, like working on these movies that like people are just gonna like not even pay attention to on Netflix or like get really bad reviews. So I think it's you know, I don't know, like again, it's like everything has its pros and a con. I think the touring would be that, you know, you're away from your family and friends, but everyone's like, but it's so cool. Like all I ever wanted to do was work on a film set, or all I ever wanted to do is tour. And I have to imagine if this is how film is, I have to imagine music and pretty much the entertainment industry, and a lot of jobs are, right? But like they all have that job aspect to them. And like, you know, as much as I love releasing music, there's a lot you have to deal with the labels and signing it, and then they sign it, and then you got to wait 6 months. And so it's like you're sitting there like, okay, what do I do? Like, how many pictures of like, burgers do I have to post on my Instagram? Like, I'm not very active on social media, you know, but like, I just like, I want to see that from people I look up to, but I don't see myself as somebody like, wow, like next like Gordon Ramsay, like, and I'll post pictures like what I make every now and then, or if I do something cool, but like, I don't know. It's not really a lifestyle that like I'm super into. I mean, some people would be like, bro, really, like you're lying right now. But I think for the most part, like, you know, I'm proud of what I've done in a way, like, you know, publicly, but I think underneath you're always like, but what if somebody thinks this, or like, you know, it's just like a weird way to live. And I don't know, like I love music for where it's at right now in my life, and it's gotten me through a lot of stuff and whatnot. But I think, I don't know, like I'm happy at kind of like you said, the journey that I'm going. And I don't know if you're the same way with you know what you do. And I mean this seems more full time obviously than you know what I do this at, but you know it is, I suppose, what you want to make out of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same in a lot of ways, man. And I had a lot of my own doubts about the podcast. You know, when I started, a lot of people are excited about it, right? And then a year goes by, and those people who were so excited about it aren't as excited about it anymore. And you're like, am I doing this for them, or am I doing this for me? And I realized maybe 2 years after I started, I was like, it's not for anybody else but me. And that's when I like fell in love with it. And now, 4 years later, I love the process. I love talking to people. Somebody I really look up to is Zane Lowe, and Zane Lowe is someone who started as an artist. And when you look at him and you listen to his interviews with people, he's relating to them on an artist-to-artist level, but you can almost tell he doesn't give a fuck who it is. He doesn't give a fuck who's watching. He's getting something out of that conversation that he's happy to be doing with his own life. You know what I mean? So, like, I always say, if it's just me and you and our mom and dads that watch this interview, that's fine with me, because I genuinely enjoy these conversations. You mentioned the Elliptical Sun producing group. Every guest that's been on Sherman the Booth, I consider a friend of mine, man. A lot of them very good friends. And without these conversations, without this passion, without this thing that I've started, I don't even know how else to put it sometimes, I wouldn't be the person I am. So I relate to you on a lot of different levels in that statement there.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, it's like, I think it's crazy how, like, we've never had like a Skype call, before, but now it's like we're on this like level where you're like, dude, I get you, like exactly what you're saying,
It happens. I swear to God, every time I have somebody on the show, we stay in touch, we talk, we exchange music, we help each other out in any way, man. That's what it's all about. Like the music industry and the film industry, I can't speak so much as the film industry, but on the outside looking in, and even when you're on the inside, it's very competitive. It's very cutthroat. But there are a lot of people that will help you. And that's the only way that you can continue to rise, is with the help of others. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. It's like I said, I wouldn't be where I am without the people who've helped me like mix and master and whatever. And I get, a lot of comments where it's like someone will be like, yo, who did this? Or, how do you mix, how do you master like that? I'm like, oh, that's like my friend Chris or my friend Jordan. Like,
yeah, exactly.
They're great. Like, check them out, and then that's like what they do more of. And, I don't know. It's like, I'm not like trying to be like the number one person in the world. I think it's, it's cool being at the level I'm at and meeting people and kind of being able to just go on this journey. And it's, don't get me wrong, like, it's all sugar coated now, but like there's times where I'm like, dude, I just can't, like, this is crazy, whatever, this person doesn't sign it, or it was signed and then doesn't get signed. And, like there's always going to be that. But like for me, like when I see people like play it, or like people like message and they're like, this like song like made my day or whatever, I'm kind of like, that's like really cool that like something I made in my bedroom is at a festival right now in like Montreal, or like some guy that I've never met in my life is playing it in like Spain, and I hear it on the radio and I like can't even understand what they're saying except the word like, Nick Hayes and the song name. And I'm like, I don't know if he's saying it's good or bad, but like, I mean, he could be like, look at this piece of crap, like from whatever, and then the name, but I don't know. So there's that, but like, I think that's kind of part of being hard on yourself too. It's been fun. And overall, like, when you get up and like open for someone and, whatever, and you get to play your music out and like see it live, and even on Twitch, like you see people like show up, and I don't have the biggest fan group, but I have a lot of people that are, very cognizant, I think, of like what I'm doing and like supportive of it, which is really cool. So, see what happens with that, I guess.
Now, a question that you actually kind of brought up earlier, and I've been asking everybody that's been on the podcast since the pandemic, is your workflow and creative process in the studio. Obviously, it's no secret this has been one of the toughest years. This is the toughest year for the music industry. We, for the most part, as DJ producers, produce music to play it at a club, to play it at a festival, right? That hasn't been happening. Has your process changed since you started? I guess you mentioned you made a lot of music in the beginning. Were you thinking differently, knowing that you don't know when your music might be able to play on a proper sound system?
Towards the end, yes, a little bit. But like at the beginning, I was like, man, I never have this time. Like I've never been so inspired.
Yeah.
I think maybe if I got sick, maybe I might have been expired. But yeah. Anyways, like I never really have the time. It's like it's cool when I get these little like early days off, and I'm able to do stuff like this or like work on music and whatnot. But I think like at the beginning it was cool, like gung ho, finished as much as I could. I had a couple songs that like been sitting on for. One of the songs I'm going to release, I think it's at the end of the year, or at least it's going to come out towards the end of the year. I don't know when the actual release date will be, but that's a song I wrote like 2 years ago. And so it's like, wow, you know, like when you think about it, it's like kind of like, okay, well, probably should have just released it a long time ago, because you get into this, you know, what at some point things don't change, right? But
yeah.
the perfectionist inside you says other things. But yeah, I think at the beginning, lot to do. Towards the end, I was like, yeah, like you're saying, you're like, what am I gonna do? Like, what is the next outlet for this? But I think for me, like I'm excited by just seeing people play it on these bigger Twitch streams where there's like, you know, thousands and thousands of people. Like, that's cool. You know, you never would have been exposed to that.
Yeah.
You know, I had a remix that came about because I sent a song to this like Twitch demo drop, and they were like, hey, we like this. And then they hit me up and they're like, yo, you can remix any of my tracks. Just let me know which and we'll work it out. Song that happened to be, you know, a song that wasn't out yet. So it's kind of like in this weird limbo of like, I don't know if it's ever going to come out because they haven't even released the original. But yeah, if that one kind of comes through, I think that'll be a big one. But I think a lot of it too is just to, I mean, obviously, like, you know, I'm just getting into Discord because I'm like an old man. But that's been kind of fun a little bit to go on there and just talk with people. And like, I think with the pandemic, like I've actually like FaceTimed more of these producers and like people that have become really close friends and like collaborated with them. I did a song with Jeff, and I don't know if we know the release date yet, but I think that might be sometime into next year.
Yeah.
At this point, but like, you know, regardless of whether the songs are our best thing or not, I think like it was cool meeting him, and now it's like I'll text him like a meme and he'll actually respond because I have his phone number now versus like Facebook message or you know, whatever, like weird things like that. But like that's been kind of what's getting me through, and I think I have, I don't know, like 3 or 4, I think 3 like collaboration tracks during this like pandemic time, that like one of them Canada, one from Europe, one from Chicago. But you know, it's like it's very cool just to be like, wow, like this is like what my network has come to, like going on, you know, Twitch, man. And like it's exciting, you know, in a way. Like I love meeting new people, and I'm not the best at like remembering names and whatnot, but like I'm more than excited to like meet you or like meet this person at the party. Like I would rather go around at a party, meet everybody, and just feel good about like, oh, I interact with so many people.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh crap, I don't remember anything. But like I'm more excited about meeting people, right? So I think that's like what, having done that and now like working on things and like finishing things that I think I'll remember the process and like learn from that, or like make friends with these people, I think has been really cool. Like the coolest part to have come out of the pandemic, besides like a few opportunities that I definitely like wouldn't have with these, you know, people on Twitch or been on their, you know, might have been on their radars, but some of these opportunities might not have come about the way that they have. So yeah, definitely not easy, but you know, I think you got to just make the best of it. And you know, there's been crazy things that happen in history, and people bounce back, as they say, and there was still music and arts during those times. And you know, even like with I think, you know, when you're talking about mediums and stuff, like I think it's more weird for me, like with film, like, you know, music will always be there. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing like better than live music and like feeling like the ooh, you know, in your chest and everything. Like I love that. You know, maybe this spared me a few years of hearing in my later life. But I think for like movies in general, like movie theaters were kind of already like going out, and now it's like the push to streaming was already a thing, but now it's like a lot of stuff is coming out on streaming. So it's kind of like, well, I'm working on these big movies, but like everyone's going to watch it on like their iPhone now. It's like kind of like, that's kind of weird to me, just as like the artsy person that I am. But yeah, I don't know if the music stuff, I think you could, you know, you can't watch movies in your car, you know, or you do, but like you don't when you're driving. Like there's still going to be podcasts. There's still going to be, you know, live streams and YouTube videos and SoundCloud mixes and shows, and like, you know, Insomniac's got a huge following, for example, on Twitch. Like the things aren't the same. Like hell, there's like Minecraft concerts now. Like I've never been to one, but like I played Minecraft for an unhealthy amount of time in college, so I'm sure like it's a great thing.
I love it, man. I'm so glad that you've been able to stay motivated and creative, and I hope for others that watch the show can follow in suit, because it has been a tough year for artists in general. Obviously, not knowing what the outlook looks like when, to a certain extent, like if this is your full-time career, shows are where you make a lot of your money, most of your money, if not all of your money. So I think that just keep doing your thing with that, bro. Is there anything you can tell us about Nick? Because we've got a lot of hints. You got some remixes coming out. You got some collabs. Is there anything that you can tell us, or when we can expect to see some new music?
Definitely. Well, I don't know. Waiting on a lot of like.
You're blue balling me. Come on.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I actually never thought I would be in this spot where I have to do this. I mean, I know you sent me the questions, but I don't know what I can. It's not like they're enormous things, but I don't know what I can say and can't say. I think there's something in December, maybe 2 things in December, maybe a remix and an original, and then a few things that I just like. I'm like I said with labels, I just waiting to hear back. Like it's like. They're on the line, like it's just like, can you send the contract so I can sleep at night kind of deal. There's a few of those right now. I think with some of these like bigger labels, you just kind of get put into their release schedule, and if they're like 8 months, then 8 months you're kind of out of luck. But yeah, I think there's some new stuff coming for sure. I have maybe like 1 or 2 more songs that are like my like, I want to say like older, like trancey progressive, like I don't know, more like something like Colony or of that type stuff. And then I'm gonna try to like go a little bit deeper. I know a lot of people like with quarantine have been like, oh, we're deeper house, or like deep progressive is like the way to go. And I'm like, I've kind of been here the whole time, but I guess I'm kind of changing into something even a little more chill, because you're always evolving, right? But I think just trying to just stay interested myself in it. I think after a while you kind of land into the same thing. But I'm excited for the track that I think comes out in December. That's something I put a lot of time in. We've made it a couple times because the laptop got stolen, and then it was like almost a collab with another artist, and then that kind of like fell through just because they were super busy, or I don't know. We still talk, so I don't think it wasn't like a bad falling out or anything, or fallout of anything. It's just sometimes things don't plan out the way you do, and I think that's one of the weird things with music. It's just like you never know until like the song is out. Like so I'm always like hesitant to say things, but it's looking very good for a remix and probably an original very soon. Good. Both of which I'm excited for. So good, man. But other than that, I'm just about out of things music-wise to release, so I should probably start doing something else, or start some more songs. I don't know. Like you got something. For sure. But lockdown en route, so I wouldn't worry about having a little more time. I think it'll be plenty of time before I'm on the big stage on the world tour anyways, until they figure out the COVID situation. But gives me time, Be determined, man. Nick, this has been such an awesome interview, man. I just want to say again, like, I'm such a huge fan of your music. You're obviously a humble guy, but I want you to know like how great of a producer you are. I know a lot of people in Chicago, shout out to the Funky Entertainment guys. Chicago loves our progressive trance, man. So if you're ever in the city, whenever this shit ends, man, let me know. Atlanta again soon, which I definitely will be. I'll hit you up. Yeah, for sure. Do it. Don't be like one of the people that has a connecting flight in Atlanta. It's like, yo, I'm in Atlanta, and it's like, cool. And they're like, well, I'm at the airport. Like, I was like, all right, well, I can't. But yeah, no, let's definitely do something. I think we said he's like, I'll buy a ticket, I'll come into the terminal. Yeah, what the fuck do they know? Go fly standby or something for say a wait or whatever. But yeah, no, awesome. I love the professionalism, and great show. Excited to. I've seen the last few, and probably will start watching these, more consistently moving on, and keep doing what you're doing. I think this is really sick, and you got a great platform.
I'm having a good time with it, man. That's for sure. And it's always an honor to connect with guys like you. So I'll definitely be reaching out to you again soon. And thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, good talk.
All right, Nick. Have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too.
Peace.